Kia ora, I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Today on The Detail,
Operation Blockout. It all started when TikToker Haley Khalil posted a video from the Met Gala lip-syncing
Let them eat cake.
Let them eat cake while dressed up fancy.
that gesture at the biggest celebrity event of the year turned into a global online movement against A-listers who are not using their influence and money to protest the war in Gaza. Labelled by one TikToker the digital guillotine, or
a digitine, if you will. We gave them their platforms. It's time to take it back.
Block them until they support Palestine.
Why is the bar on the floor when it comes to celebrities?
Block that fool. Cristiano Ronaldo, zoom in, Twitter profile, already blocked. Justin Bieber, same thing, Twitter profile, already blocked. No one is safe.
Block celebrities on social media so they don't earn ad revenue from you.
So can this form of online justice do any good? Or is it just another chapter in the culture wars? And what difference will shaming celebrities make in efforts to stop the war in Gaza?
Like, this whole celebrity blockout thing is a wonderful idea. But what about the ding-dongs in Washington who pass bills in the middle of the night that only benefit their geriatric dinosaur wallets? Could we not all get together and do something even crazier? Like, I don't know, maybe refuse to pay taxes, or maybe we pick a month where nobody spends a single dollar on a mega corporation who rakes in billions of dollars a year.
Here to make sense of it is Dr. Sabrina Morrow. She lectures in media, film and communication at Otago University.
What is interesting about this campaign is that rather than unfollowing celebrities, it invites users and fans to block celebrities in the hope that it will impact their ad revenue. Because if celebrities are only unfollowed, they can still show up through the algorithms of the social media platform, whether it is on Instagram or on TikTok. And therefore, they're still counting as having some kind of views, having some kind of impact that they can monetize for ad revenue. Whereas if celebrities are blocked, then they can't make as much money. And so it's, tapping where it hurts for the celebrities, which is in many instances, especially influencers, would be their capacity to monetize their views for ad partnerships, brand partnerships, etc.
So rather than cancelling them, they're being blocked?
Yes.
And is there any sign yet, I know it's very early days, but any sign that it's making any difference at all?
There have been some celebrities who've responded in the aftermath, whether it is, because of this campaign or whether it felt like the right moment for them to speak out. I can't know for sure. I'm not privy to their meetings with their PR management team. But I'm thinking of people like Lizzo, for instance, who've shared a lot of resources online where people can make donations and links that they can follow as well to write to their representatives. So yes, there have been some positive outcome of that campaign and quite early on as well.
And the other way, is there any sign that they are losing revenues because people are blocking them?
Some of the report on the campaign have counted the number of followers that they've lost, but it's really difficult to really quantify the revenue that they would have lost, because obviously one unblocking equals minus $5. That's really not really how it works. So I think what we'd be having to look at in terms of the impact is perhaps some news or reports on brand partnerships cancelled or celebrity endorsements deals that are cancelled. I think this is where we would probably see the impact.
I've read one article that said it's already petering out. It's already kind of losing the plot. Is that what tends to happen? There's a lot of excitement over it and everybody dives in and has their say. But then it does, then people move on to the next event.
So this is where we want simple answers to very complex issues. And it's easier to block a celebrity than showing up week after week to your local protest in support of Palestine. It's easier to block a celebrity than perhaps writing to your representative or, organizing fundraising campaign to make some donations. So it's always going to be a bit of a danger in that in an economy of attention, celebrities' visibility is a form of competitive resource. And what is then come out is a hot take. It's an immediate response, but it's a response that trades in virality and in branding, and it doesn't really explore the complex answers and responses that we need for those complex issues.
Yeah, because I'm also wondering about the celebrities themselves. I mean, you know, if I was going to feel sorry for them, I'd say this is bullying. I mean, why should every celebrity go public on an issue that they may not know anything about?
Yeah, I mean, the response to this is twofold. On the one hand, I think that anyone who has an influence has a responsibility that comes with it. So, obviously, I'm not asking celebrities to be expert on this question, but they have the capacity to orient the gaze towards these issues, and they have the capacity to use their visibility to orient the discussion around people who have that expertise to propose forward some solutions. I've seen some really interesting examples actually happening online. One person that I follow online is an influencer called Rain Dove Model, and they've been at the forefront supporting local on-the-ground initiatives in Egypt and in Gaza.
As you know, over the past over 100 days, myself and my team have worked tirelessly 7 days a week with Gazan Palestinians, both refugees throughout Egypt and also in Gaza.
It's not a coincidence that we often have in justice campaigns celebrities who are asked to be spokespeople for those campaigns, or that they'll be the face of a fundraising campaign, for instance.
What about the argument that it should be politicians who are blocked?
Why is it that we can't take this same energy and put it towards people like politicians or greedy CEOs? Why is it that the only time that people can band together is when it's trendy to do so on TikTok? Let's start coming up with some actions to band together to block the people who have actual influence on our lives, the people who have been doing a piss poor job at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, then again, complex answers for complex issues. I think that all of these forms of activism are valid. And I think that they also complement one another in many ways, right? So, blocking a celebrity, and then alongside maybe asking your employers how are they supporting a BDS movement, for instance, which is boycott, divest, sanction. So here at the university, we have our own open letter, and interesting has not gained a lot of traction in the media, but this is what we're trying to do. So interrogating our own complicity, holding those in power accountable through the ways that we have, and kind of thinking about what we can do in our spheres of life, as small as it might be, but that will together bring the change that we need to see, and the ceasefire that we very much hope to happen in a form of solutions, as well as the political level, that answers some of these long historical tension that obviously won't be easily solved.
So how far will it go? And when does pressure to do the right thing become bullying? Here's Auckland University Humanities Professor Neil Curtis, who specialises in social media.
The intensity of it can feel like bullying. The important thing about social media is you can block people and mute people. Moderation on social media is really, really important, I think, right?
Yes, but it doesn't seem to exist.
No, but that's the point, because people like Elon Musk don't want to moderate Twitter. He sacked all of his moderation team, practically. Facebook seems to only moderate women who are breastfeeding. Facebook has a very limited notion of moderation. I think what we're seeing here is a problem where, because these tech companies are American, we're seeing an extension of the First Amendment, the American First Amendment, globally. Which is? The right to free speech, right? Now, in the States, it's pretty much an absolute right. You can say what you like, whenever you want, and so on. But of course, what people don't understand is that nobody is obliged to platform your speech. So most of the social media companies have gone for a low moderation route, just to let everybody speak. I mean, Twitter is openly inviting explicit neo-Nazis back to Twitter, right?
Because it
gets engagement and so on. Even if the far right aren't responding, the left are responding, trying to cancel, call out, and it just gets more data, more traction, more eyeballs, more attention, because we live in an attention economy. It's all about making money from getting people's attention. And interestingly, when Jack Dorsey left Twitter, when Musk bought it, he was setting up this new thing called Blue Sky, which I've started to use. But Dorsey has now left Blue Sky because the users on Blue Sky want moderation. They want the ability to mute or block people who just jump into their feed or their DMs and start abusing them.
So he wants it all to be open and freedom, and
because what people don't understand is that the point about social media, one thing about the social, both me and you moderate our lives. There's certain places we don't want to go. There's certain people we don't want to entertain or speak to. There's a key part of what we do as social beings. So when I go into social media, I should be able to do the same thing. Right? If I don't want a neo-Nazi shouting at me, why should I have a neo-Nazi shouting at me just because it makes money for Elon Musk? So many of the big social media companies have abandoned moderation. YouTube is another example, right? All sorts of stuff on YouTube. And many people have argued for greater moderation. But of course, these are all the woke crowd. It's all the wokies who want moderation.
Do they? Because is it the wokes who are the ones who are calling out the celebrities?
Well, you could say that, yes. But the point is that most of the people on social media who describe themselves as progressive would like to be able to block and stop certain people on social media. And yes, you could argue that the people who are arguing for progressive politics are also the ones that are doing the bullying. That's certainly the case. So one way round it is to ensure moderation. So if you don't want to listen to these people, you don't have to listen to them. Nobody should be exposed to this. I tend to think that people who are in dominant public positions almost need to accept that flack is going to come their way at certain points. You know, if I write something for Newsroom, invariably there's a few in my inbox telling me I shouldn't be teaching, I shouldn't be allowed near young people. So I think it's a question of moderation, and I think moderation works both ways.
So getting back to Gaza and the social media debate and this hashtag blockout campaign, it seems much bigger than anything else. I mean, you know, you don't hear about celebrities being blocked because they haven't gone public with how they feel about the Ukraine war, for example. Why is it Gaza that has kind of brought out all this negative feeling?
The social media generally is culturally influenced by whatever's going on in the US, right? Remember, these are largely US platforms apart from TikTok, but lots of people use TikTok. And interestingly, Mitt Romney came out the other day in an interview and admitted the reason why they got bipartisan agreement to ban TikTok in the States is because they believed too much information was coming out about Palestine.
Which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcast. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
So what's happening in the US in relation to Ukraine is the US is defending a country that's been invaded by Russia. So the US is putting in loads of funding, loads of support, material, military support for Ukraine. So in terms of social media, Ukraine's a good thing. People are doing the right thing. Whereas with Gaza, because the US and also the UK, but primarily the US, are sponsoring and funding with material and military support to Israel, it feels like the US is actively involved in what is going on in Gaza. So I think that explains why you get the completely different approach, right? And also the problem with the Ukraine-Russia one is that so many politicians, conservative politicians in the US, are supporters of Putin anyway. Right? Putin is a hero for many people in the sort of alt-right and on the new version of conservatism in the States. So for young people, that's a ground that doesn't really make sense to them. And in the main, they feel like America's doing the right thing there. Whereas in relation to Gaza, they feel like they're doing the wrong thing, and they feel like they're paying taxes, and they feel that they are therefore personally involved in what's happening. Social media, like any form of communication, has the ability to inflate, expand, and intensify. We know that a lot of these people will be well-meaning and doing this for really, really good reasons. Other people there was some sort of psychological compensation for doing this, right? It'll make them feel good, feel like they're doing something. It'll make up for some other contradiction in their life. This is the thing that they can use to alleviate themselves from all the guilt. But I think my initial response would be, given that this is a US-driven thing, largely it's the position of the US in relation to both those conflicts that explains why Gaza in particular is getting so much attention.
The problem is that this kind of pressure on people, not just celebrities, but other people, young people in particular, and the marches and all of that kind of thing. So many people are so ill-informed, and yet you're expected to come out publicly and state what they want you to state. Do you know what I mean? Even when, there is so much propaganda around about the Gaza war. It's hard to know, even for the ordinary person, to know what's the truth and what's not.
Oh, no, absolutely. You've got Israel on one hand and you've got Hamas on the other hand, right? They're both kind of amazing kind of propagandists. And, the fog of war has always been used as a reason for indecision. There's always an excuse to sort of not do something because it's all messy and we can't trust our information. And again, goes back to social media, the amount of disinformation there is on social media. Social media itself is antisocial, I think, right? It will bring about the end of democracy. That and a couple of other things will bring about the end of democracy, because once you destabilise any trust in information, you can do anything. And it's a method of propaganda that came out of Russia and Putin, but there's a whole set of books on that, and we can talk about that another time.
And every day forward for the rest of my life in solidarity with the people of Palestine.
That's Macklemore performing his new pro-Palestine track Heinz Hall to a sellout crowd in Wellington. But what does that have to do with Operation Blockout? Sabrina Morrow again.
Again, a question of what it is about celebrities that we're so invested in. So celebrities are symbols, unifying symbols, whether it is through their songs, whether it is through the films that they might make, whether it is through the content that they produce online. There is something about celebrities where we recognize ourselves, and at an emotional level, it plays an important role. It binds us together as people, as fans of those people, coming together around our love or how they inspire us. So they play a key role at a kind of ideological level. And so for me, the Blockout campaign or the song is an example of that kind of ideological work that they're doing in their capacity to direct our attention. But then again, I'm more interested in what it is that they do at a discursive level. What kind of messages does it share? How does it enable people to feel, and then through feeling coming together and triggering some forms of actions, rather than quantifying those different forms of celebrity activism, or lack of thereof, which is the case of Blockout.
What do your students say about all of this?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. So the semester has picked up. It's become a topic that just keeps coming up at every single lecture and every tutorials. The students want to talk about it, whether I want it or not, right? And I answer to what the students want to talk about. For me, teaching is all about giving them the tools to make sense of their own experiences. And so that's what's really on their mind at the moment.
You mean talking about the war in Gaza, or this movement, this pro-Palestine movement? What are they talking about?
Both, but mostly the war in Gaza and then the different forms of protest around it. So last week we did mention the student protest, and then this week Blockout was also mentioned. Some of them were aware of it, others were not, and we had like a little moment of just kind of thinking about how we might think through these complex issues. And funnily enough, my lecture yesterday was on social media activism, which was which couldn't have been better timed.
Absolutely, very topical, Sabrina.
Very topical, yes.
Interesting that some of your students had never heard of Blockout. You know, because you think you think all young people are on social media and that they're so in tune with all of this kind of thing.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, I started the week as well thinking that I hadn't heard about it, and I actually had seen it, but I just hadn't really clicked that that was the name that was granted to the movement. And then obviously, as the week have picked up, I spent a lot of time online and looking, you know, at different expression and kind of researching it. But yeah, so I think it's more like maybe they might have had the awareness, but not necessarily known that's how it was labeled.
Made the connection. So, as someone who, you know, closely watches these kind of campaigns, online campaigns, how does it compare with others? I mean, to me, it feels huge. But is it, say, as big as Black Lives Matter?
I mean, Black Lives Matter is a movement that has a very, very, very long history online and in underground organizing. So, yeah, I mean, Black Lives Matter is a bit different in that it has had different moments, right? We often think of 2020 as Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter was around way before then. It's been a steady form of organizing and a steady movement.
And even though she follows the online campaigns closely, Sabrina's final word on the Gaza war is simple.
The last message really is, for me, is, you know, call your representative, put pressure on the government.
That's it for today. The Detail is supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. Alexia Russell and Davina Zimmer produced this podcast. William Saunders engineered it. Thanks to Sabrina Morrow and Neil Curtis. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Mā te wā.